Have you ever had that sinking intuition that something's profoundly wrong? Like when your fridge light starts stuttering every time you open the door for days on end, and deep down you know it's not just a faulty bulb? That's how it all kicked off for Minute with explosive arguments or courtroom theatrics. But a subtle flicker and a nagging suspicion laced with my signature sarcastic wit. I live on the outskirts of a so-called upscale suburban enclave, the kind where the homeowners association lords over gravel paths and tacky lawn ornaments like they're ruling a gated paradise. My place is right on the border, technically under their thumb, but facing wide-open fields, a haven until Susan showed up next door. Susan wasn't your run-of-the-mill busybody. She was a force of unbridled entitlement, eyes gleaming like a predator the second she spotted my solar panels. I'd catch her lingering, feigning admiration for the scenery while zeroing in on my roof like it was her next conquest. When I'd ask if she needed anything, she'd unleash that grating cackle-think nails on a chalkboard and quip, "Oh, nothing, just pondering how selfish it is to hoard all that free power." I shrugged it off at first. I'm no social butterfly, and if she wanted to covet from afar, fine. But then the power glitches escalated, random surges on my app, even at night with minimal draw. Paranoid but pragmatic, I inspected my setup and spotted Ida's shabby extension cord snaking from my inverter through the shrubs, straight into Susan's garage like an invited guest. Stunned by the sheer nerve, I wasn't even mad at first. It was almost admirable, like a clumsy thief raiding the cookie jar. I marched over, rang her doorbell that obnoxious, drawn-out melody and confronted her in her mismatched beach robe and curlers. "Hey Susan, any clue why there's a cord from my solar system feeding your place?" She tilted her head innocently. "Well, I figured it was shared. Solar's for everyone, right? Your spot gets endless sun, and my poor fish pond was icing over. Plus my garden statues looked so dim without lights." She was dead serious, framing her theft as some noble eco-collaboration, like I'd built a public utility. I bit back a laugh. "This isn't a commune, Susan. It's my property, my bill you're straight up stealing." She gasped dramatically. "Stealing? I'm redistributing excess energy. Think of the planet." I walked away grinning, not forgiving, but plotting. "See, I've got Animals a handful of goats, chickens, and a skittish cow named Daisy who's terrified of birds but unfazed by volts. My pasture uses a low-zap electric fence, just enough to deter wandering." That sparked the idea. What if Susan's pilfered line got rerouted to mimic that fence's buzz? I rigged a dummy inverter in my shed, linking it to the fence's output safe, legal, grounded. If she tapped in, she'd get a shocking education, not free juice. I waited. 3 days later, her pond hummed and statues glowed. She'd re-hooped without apology. But entitlement like hers doesn't stop, it probes. By day 4, her greed boiled over into HOA aggression. Hand-delivered notes appeared, taped aggressively to my door, ranting about obstructing communal resources and hoarding solar assets. The second came from HOA Pres Harold Jenkins, Susan's cousin, a bland bureaucrat with the charm of expired milk demanding an inspection for fair distribution. It reeked of nepotism, sparking debates in my mind. Is private renewable energy truly private, or should nosy neighbors claim a slice under green pretenses? I fired back, citing county regs proving the HOA had zero jurisdiction without consent, taping my polished response next to hers. Susan didn't take rejection lightly. She pounded on my door in yoga attire, arms folded. "You're being obstructive. This neighborhood thrives on shared ideals." I smiled sweetly. "My panels thrive on my wallet. You can't just splice in and call it Harmonithat's theft, plain and simple." She flinched when I mentioned her breaking into my locked cabinet, then huffed, "Harold's pushing the audit anyway." I prepped a binder of docs, diagrams labeling the dummy as a test unit, and added a sensor-triggered camera. At 2:13 a.m., my phone buzzed, motion alert. There was Susan, headlamp on, fiddling barehanded with the box. She yanked the cord and zap. Her hair frizzed. She yelped, tumbling back as a fish splashed in panic. Glorious, but was my trap too vindictive, crossing into vigilante territory? Morning brought her furious, damp-haired banging. "You electrocuted me. I could have died. I feigned innocence." "From the cord you stole? I've got footage." She blanched, then dialed the sheriff right there, barefoot and frazzled, accusing me of wielding an energy assault weapon. Sheriff Tom arrived, poker-faced as Susan spun her tale of photovoltaic ambush and grid warfare, claiming near death for eco-justice. I sipped coffee while Tom listened. "So, you got shocked while trespassing and tampering?" he clarified. Susan sputtered. "It's not trespass if he's concealing community power." Tom reviewed my video, mustache twitching. "Ma'am, this screams theft and mischief. You'll need a statement at the station." She stormed off like a thwarted villain. Tom chuckled later. "Cow fence reroute? Clever, but borderline watch the ethics." His report rattled the HOA. Turns out Susan had siphoned funds for her pond and statues. Vice Pres Evelyn apologized via letter, suspending Harold for conflicts, offering damages. Neighbors whispered, was the HOA's overreach enabling theft, or was my retaliation fueling unnecessary feuds? Silence reigned briefly, but Susan schemed. She hired a contractor who zapped himself, then ranted online about weaponized farms, earning mockery. I bought the adjacent lot, fenced it for 15 rowdy goats, dubbing it Susan's Sanctuary Petty? Absolutely. But was it fair play against a serial boundary pusher? Flyers followed, decrying illegal goat invasions and bleeding harassment, but they flopped. Inspections she triggered failed. My permits were ironclad. I compiled her antics into a harassment suit, sparking HOA votes, stripping her privileges amid revelations of her water siphoning and bylaw tweaks. Then the lawsuit. Susan demanded compensation for solar sabotage, emotional trauma, even a traumatized fish death. Controversial? Her greenwashing theft versus my electrified defense. Where's the line between self-protection and excessive payback? I countersued for damages, unearthing neighbor tales of her borrowing fountains and timers. Discovery exposed her rigging HOA rules for personal gain. County halted her pond for violations. Her meltdown was epic, barricading with furniture, screeching about sunlight conspiracies. One last trespass. Night vision caught her ski mask sneak, spotlight flipping on as Daisy charged, sending her sprawling into droppings. Footage sealed it. Her suit crumbled. Desperate, she listed her house. I lowballed via LL Can She Bit. Bulldozed the pond, planted a community garden with solar gazebo, sign reading fueled by spite, bloomed in tranquility. Goats bleat harmoniously, Daisy's vigilant. Susan fled to a rigid condo complex, doubtless micromanaging anew. But was my triumph justice or overkill, sparking endless debates on neighborly vengeance in eco-era suburbia?